my name is Kim from Kimber's Corner and welcome to my Corner of Happiness. In this tutorial, I'll show you how to make Genevieve's placemat, which is worked up of single crochets made in the front loop only. So this beautiful little ridge that comes out, that's the back loop. So we work this vertically, not horizontally, and so because we're only working into one loop, not both, I found that my tension liked to change at times. It's normal. It happens to me all the time because working into one loop is a lot harder than working into both loops. So I recommend that you block this after because all the color changes happen on one side. And I found that my first 6 rows ended up being a lot wider than the rest. So blocking really just straightens out your edges and just makes it look a little nicer. Now you can find the free written instructions on my blog, which is linked in the description below. And for this placemat, you'll need cotton yarn, and I'm using Hobby Lobby's I Love This Cotton in 3 colors. So my color A is Dark Denim, color B is Warm Blush, and color C is Pale Denim. Now for the fringe, there is 1 fringe for every row. So there's 6 rows of A, so there's 6 fringe. There's 2 rows of B, so there's 2 fringe. Then 6 and 6 and so on. But I'll go over that again at the end. So let's go ahead and I'll show you how I work this up, and I'll go over a few color changes with you and then give you the instructions for the rest of the rows. Okay, when you're ready, go ahead and grab your 5mm crochet hook, some scissors, and a darning needle just for weaving in your ends later, and just keep them handy since there are a lot of color changes. So find your color A, go ahead and make a slip knot and leave a chain long enough to weave in later, and chain 80. Now this is the bottom of the placemat, which is why we're doing 80, because we're working vertically, not horizontally. So if you don't know how to make a chain, you just yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through, and that's 2 of 80 chains. So you want to make these chains not loose, but you don't want them super tight. You just want them pretty normal. Just because when we go back to work our first row, we're going to be working into the 3rd loop, or that bump that's on the quote back of the chain. So normally you'd work into this top loop, but we're going to be working into the bump. And on the placemat, why we're doing that, there's fuzz, but why we're doing that is so you won't really be able to tell which end we started with. And it just makes it look pretty. You don't have to do this. If it's easier for you to work into that first bump, then do that. But I just think that working into the 3rd loop just makes it give that finished look a lot nicer. Okay, so I'll meet you back here when you've got 80 chains. Once you have made your 80 chains, go ahead and turn the chain so you see the 3rd bump. Now we're going to skip this one that's closest to the hook, and we're going to single crochet in every chain bump until the end. So single crochet is just insert your hook, and it might be really tricky for the 3rd loop, especially if you haven't done it before, but you'll insert your hook, pull through the stitch, or chain in this case, yarn over and pull through both loops. Now one thing that I like to do is I like to use my thumb as a guide, because like I said, if you've never done this before, it can get really tricky. Sometimes you just got to push it on there. But one thing that I like to do when working into that bump is when I'm about to pull through, my goodness, I'm having a lot of trouble. But when I pull through, I like to pinch it with my thumb and my middle finger. That way the tension won't pull from the other loops around the bottom of the chain. So it can be tricky, but just go slow with it. If you're someone like me who finds that their first 2 rows are typically a little wider than the rest of their project, it's because here you make your tension a lot looser than you do for the rest of your rows. So if you know you're that type of person like me, you want to make your single crochets really tight here. That one's giving me trouble. Let's still giving me trouble. So just single crochet all the way along, and I'll meet you at the end. I'm finishing up my last 2 chains. This last one's can be the most trickiest, that last one. So once you finish that, you'll chain 1 and turn. Now the chain 1 does not count as a stitch. So in the first and the last stitch of every row, no matter what color, is always going to be a regular single crochet. So insert your hook through both loops, yarn over, pull through, and yarn over, pull through 2. Now in the middle, we're working in the front loop only. So if you might be more used to working in just the back loop, but if you've never worked through the front loop, it can be a little tricky at first to get right. Now I like to, again, like we did with the chains, I like to pinch with my thumb and my middle finger, but you can find whatever works for you. And I like to use my middle finger as a kind of hold that back loop in place and just shove my hook under that front loop and make a single crochet. And it can get tricky, especially if you've never done it. So just insert your hook into the front loop and make a single crochet. It might also help if you're having difficulty just kind of wiggling the project. So once you get to the end of row 6 with color A is when we're going to change colors. So keep working into the front loop only for 6 rows. We're currently on row 2. So once you finish this, and do rows 3, 4, 5, and stop at the end of row 6. So remember, in the first and last stitch of every row will be a regular single crochet, and in the middle you're working just in the front loop only. Okay, I'll meet you back once you have 6 rows of color A completed. All right, once you're on the end of your 6th row, and an easy way to tell is this little ridge will identify 2 rows. So no matter what side you're on, I'll show you how to count for both. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. On your other side, there's 1, because it's below the ridge, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, because there's 1 above your ridge. So I've left my last stitch unworked, because remember, the first and last stitch of every row is a regular single crochet. So insert your hook into both loops, yarn over and pull through, and stop here because we're going to change colors. Now again, this is how I change color. Not everyone does it the same way that I do it, so you can change colors however you prefer. So I cut my yarn, I cut it leaving a long enough strand to weave in, and then I find my color B. Now I match up my ends and pull it tight. Then I find my tension, or I just get ready to finish my stitch, yarn over with both colors, and pull through the stitch. Then I pull up a little bit, pull my hook out, drop at the ends, find color A, pull it all the way through, insert my hook back in here, pull it down tight, then find my tension once more, so get ready to make another stitch. Then for my chain 1, which does not count as a stitch, I'll use both strands, and then drop my ends again, find the end that's loose and which loop that this one belongs to, and I'll just pull that one all the way through. And then I don't like to leave it like that. You can, there's nothing wrong with that, but I just like to leave my loop just single like that. And that leaves both my ends pointed toward the center, so I can work over them a few times and then weave them in. Now that's just how I like to do it, but you can do it however you want to. Then turn your work, because we've already chained 1, single crochet like normal under both loops, and include both your ends in there. Just make a single crochet. Then find your front loop, and I just tuck my ends over that once I found it, pull through and pull through. Then I do that 1 or 2 more times with my ends. Insert the hook, push my ends over, and pull through. And then I just drop my ends and tuck them out of the way. And then I continue. So and hopefully you've found an easier time on working in the front loop only. And if you're getting this pulling, that's normal and that's okay. Don't let that scare you. You're still going to end up, oh, sorry, wasn't in the camera. You're still going to end up with that ridge, even with that bump. And that bump will level itself out, as I'm sure you've already noticed. So don't be worried. It's normal. It's part of working in one loop. And that's also why your tension can get really off for me, because it can really confuse you. So like, okay, you see that lump, okay, I need to make my stitches tighter because it's too loose. But that loop is totally normal. Just keep going like normal. So don't forget, the first and last stitch of every row is a regular single crochet through both loops, and every stitch in between is only through that front loop. So go ahead and, this is row 7 in color B. So do row 7 and 8 in color B, and then we'll switch to color C. And I'll meet you back here to switch to color C. So for finishing up row 8, you're going to make your single crochet into the last stitch of the row. And this, it can be tricky because there was just a color change. Let me pull this out, but you'll notice you're working into this loop and this loop for both loops. So insert there and this one. Like I said, it can be tricky because it was just the color change. Make sure I got all the strands of that one, because it was the color change. And it'll be tight. So again, stop here because we're switching to color C. So go ahead and cut color B with the long enough end to weave in. Find your color C and match up the ends. Find your tension to get ready to make another stitch. Yarn over and pull through with both colors. Okay, find color B, pull it through, then chain 1 with both loops of color C. Okay, then you'll find the end. You find the loop that connects to the loose end, pull it all the way through. Then reinsert your hook and turn your work. All right. Then for the first stitch of the row, you'll make a regular single crochet. Make sure you're working the ends in there as well. Pull through, and then do the front loop only over your ends just for 2 or 3 stitches. Okay, then drop your ends to the back and keep on going. Okay, now you'll do 6 rows of color C until you get to row 14, and we will switch back to color B. Okay, so I'll meet you back there and show you one more time how I change colors, and then I'll go over how the rest of it will go. So we're working on row 9 right now. So 9 through 14 is color C, and row 15 will be color B. So I'll meet you back at the end of row 14 when we're ready to go on to row 15. Alrighty, so we're on the last stitch of row 14, and I'll show you one more time how to change colors. So insert through both loops of the last stitch and stop here. Cut your color C. Now we're going on to color B. So pull out your pink or color B again, match up your ends, and pull down. You're going to pull through with both colors. Oops. And then pull through color C all the way. Then you'll chain 1 with both strands of color B. Find your loose strand and pull that loop all the way through. Then you'll turn your work and secure your ends with your first few stitches. So this is row 15 that we're working on with color B. So row 15 and 16 are color B, and then I'll go over I'll go over the next rows after that. So work through the first loop and secure your ends. And then you can drop them and keep going like normal. And hopefully by now you'll have figured out how your tension is and how, and you should be on your way to working in that first loop a lot easier than from when you started with color A. Here's how the placemat will go from here. Rows 1 through 14 we've already completed, and we're working on row 15 right now. So complete row 15 and row 16 in color B. Rows 17 and 18 are in color A. Rows 19 through 30 are in color C. 31 and 32 are in color A. 33 and 34 are in color B. 35 through 40 are in color C. 41 and 42 are in color B. And 43 through 48 are in color A. Then you'll fasten off and weave in all your ends. Once you have finished rows 1 through 48 and woven in all your ends, it's time to do the fringe. Now, one thing I'd like to note before we move on to the fringe is it's a lot easier that I found when weaving in your ends if you follow the groove of the thread of the yarn. So I just kind of find my way through and just follow the thread through, and then, you know, just pull it out and cut. So there's a lot of different ways that you can weave your ends in, and so just find whichever way best works for you and that you're most comfortable with, that it's not going to come out. So as I mentioned in the beginning, there is one strand of fringe for every row. So there'll be 6 rows of fringe here, 2 rows, 6, 2, 2, 12, and 2, 2, 6, 2, and 6. So what you'll need is you'll need to grab your ruler, and I cut 5-inch strands. You don't have to cut 5-inch strands. You can cut shorter or longer, depending on how you like, but I like the depth that 5 inches gives. And so you'll need exactly 32 5-inch strands for color A, 16 strands for color B, and 48 strands for color C. So I'm going to go ahead and cut all my strands. So once you have all your strands cut, go ahead and grab your hook again. Now, it truly does not matter exactly where you place these fringe, just as long as they're evenly across. So for this first, we're going to do 6. So grab one strand and fold it in half. Then go ahead and insert your hook where you want that first one to be. I like to put that first one on the really end, so I just kind of shove my hook in wherever I can and put the loop on your hook. And then I pinch it. This is just how I do it. You can do it however you're most comfortable doing it, with a darning needle or just with your fingers. I find it's easier with a hook. And then pull that loop through. And then I wrap it, I yarn over with the 2 ends and pull it through. And then I pull it tight. And there's your first one. And I'll show you a few more times. And then we'll work all the way along. So fold it in half. Insert your hook. And this is where I like that kind of a ridge has identified itself, because that I'm going to use those holes that come out in the work. Put your hook in, pull it through, yarn over, and pull through, and pull it down tight. So take your strand, fold it in half, insert your hook, put the loop over your hook, pull it through, yarn over with the 2 ends, and pull through, pull down tight. Okay, there's 3. So fold it in half, then insert your hook, put the Put it on there, yarn over, and pull through. Thank you so much for watching. I'd love it if you leave a comment and let me know how much you liked it and if you want to see more placemats in the future. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see more content like this.